I'm devastated with awe and gratitude every day. And I think picking up the camera every now and then and bringing people into that world and spread consciousness that way, it feels like it feels very important for the first time.
This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity. This is Synchronicity.
Welcome to episode 70 of Synchronicity. My guest this week is the return of Sean Dunne, documentary filmmaker. They're some of the best documentaries I've ever seen. You can check them all out at veryape.tv. All of them are free. I mean, they're basically, I've had him on before, but essentially he interviews people who are typically marginalized, typically not well understood, and just is really open and honest and gives them an opportunity to speak their mind, which I think is a very important thing to do, especially when we're dealing with people who maybe don't share our same opinions and, beliefs about the world. I think it's important to hear from those people too. It's critical, actually, especially when we're trying to come up with a template for how to engage with people who disagree with us without being nasty and or jerky. So this episode was recorded last week at Sean and Cass's apartment in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. A note about this podcast and the podcast for next week. They're in-person ones. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these in and around New York. Hopefully going to be doing someone at this MindPod Network live event on March 18th in Los Angeles. That's going to be pretty cool. But I will point this out about the live podcasts that I've been doing. I talk a lot. Have you guys not noticed this? I feel like on the Skype conversations I do with people, I'm a little more mindful of letting the guests speak and hearing from them, because that's why a lot of people listen. They want to hear the people I'm interviewing or talking with. These in-person ones for this episode and the one next week, I feel like I talk a little bit too much. Part of it was being in Sean's apartment. We recorded 2 podcasts. One was for this Synchronicity episode, and the other is for his podcast, Very Ape podcast. That one is live right now. You can check it out as soon as you're done with this one, or you can check it out before if you want. This is the first part of the conversation. His is the second part of the conversation. Part of it felt like we were just recording his podcast, so I kind of felt like I was encouraged to talk a little bit more. So I talk a lot. I apologize if you're not here to hear me and you want to hear about Sean and the guests. Okay. The Synchronicity community, the email community. I mentioned something in this week's email specifically related to this episode. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can join the Synchronicity community. This gets you into the book club giveaways. I give away a book every month or so. Haven't done one of those in a while. Gonna do one next week. There you go. How about that? You join the email community. I send you updates on the show, some extra special information sometimes related to guests. But one of the things I pointed out in this week's email is that Sean brings up something in this episode that I've thought about quite a bit and I think is relatively important. And he says, you know what? I think I could give up everything and just go become a monk in a monastery. And I said to him, I was like, I think you could. I think not everyone could do that, but I think you could. The question is that the thing you're supposed to be doing? Is that the reason that you're here doing the things you're doing now? Is it to give it all up and become a monk? And that's not a pointed question. Really, the answer is think about it and decide what you want to do. I know in my life and a lot of other people's lives who've taken psychedelics, had transcendental experiences, there comes a point in time where you're like, all right, fuck society. I think I need to go live in a cave or a monastery and just meditate for the benefit of all sentient beings. Benefit? That's not a word. But the question is that the right thing to do? So we discussed that. I think I gained some more clarity in speaking with Sean about that particular issue. And it's one that I think is relatively important, because when we hear things like in Buddhism about being non-attached, I think that's a little tricky concept sometimes. That doesn't mean to detach and pretend that the world isn't there. It means don't be so gripped by the trials and tribulations and oscillations in the world, not necessarily push them away. Not saying people shouldn't be monks, shouldn't have their own perspectives on how to deal with their life in the world, but I do tend to think that people who are born in the West, for the most part, we're here for a reason. Let's try to figure out what that is. So, anything else I have to say? I don't think so. I'm kind of itching to get to this episode. It's a longer one. Again, I apologize for talking so much. We may have partaken in the devil's weed. You may hear that. Sean has this crazy hands-free setup that feels like you're in the cockpit of a plane with the microphones. I really had an excellent time. We're going to be doing more of these. I have some special guests coming up in the next few weeks. Some really fucking cool people. I know you guys are going to enjoy it. I used a curse word. I used a naughty word. That's how confident I am you're going to enjoy this episode and episodes coming up. Again, if you want to hear the second part of this conversation, go check out Sean's podcast, Very Ape, on MindPodNetwork.com. We know about MindPod Network now, right? There is a new practical guide to mindfulness coming out. I know I've said this a lot. It is really coming out. We're getting all our ducks in a row. It's happening. Also, I want to say a quick thanks. I've been reaching out to people who completed my creativity survey. I'm doing a project and a course on creativity, and a lot of people reached out or completed a survey, almost 200 people. And I've been doing these one-to-one interviews trying to find out more about what you guys want and what would actually be useful for you in a course on creativity. And I'm honing in on what it's going to be. And that's specifically because of the help that you guys have given me. So seriously, thank you so much for that. I'm just going to get to it. Right? Let's get to the episode. No more yammering from me. Without further ado, here is Sean Dunne.
I always err on the side of low.
Okay. Yeah.
Just because you can always make something louder.
Yeah.
You can't make something less
Yeah.
creepy. Well, you can actually. Believe it or not, you can.
You can?
Yeah.
You can take like an
Yeah.
overmodulation.
It used to.
out.
I mean, basically, think of it like this: anything that you had, like in a big studio 20 years ago, is now easily in a computer. So the things that were really expensive like 10 years ago, which is like declipping, things like that, they have those in software now too.
Oh,
so
shit.
it's like.
Why does anyone go to the big studio?
One of the things, so in that Ableton thing I was showing you,
Yeah.
there's this thing where you can take an audio file and go convert to MIDI, which is turning audio, a waveform, into notes or velocity or whatever. So you can basically, let's say we heard like, Rick James Super Freak. We could then make that in one fucking click automatically map to a new drum track, or take the melody and harmony from it and map it to notes in a separate MIDI track. Then on that MIDI track, you can put any instrument you want in there and it'll play it in that instrument.
Wow.
That's fucking, like, no one spoke about it. I mean, I was at a school where they were talking about these things, but like, I feel like that was like a hugely underreported thing, advance in technology, because that used to be like a lot of hard work. Like if you heard Rick James Super Freak, you would have to figure out what key is it in, take a piano or guitar, figure it out, then recreate, okay, where are the notes, write them in, and then be like, okay, is this right? Is this close enough? It's crazy. So it's just...
Have you heard Frank Ocean's new album?
No, I haven't heard it, but I like the first one. Is it good?
I never got into him before. And I gave, whatever his last critically acclaimed thing was, I gave a couple spins and I was like, maybe this just isn't for me. This new thing, Blonde, holy shit, that's a sacred album. I don't say that about many records, but
Really?
that's in there. Yeah.
So here's a great. Oh, is that a Alex Ray thing?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's an Alex Gray chalice that
So
I got from
that's
the
right,
Kickstarter
chalice.
thing.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, I mean, the sacred question with music, I wonder, or anything, because I feel like when you're in the mindset of things are sacred, it's easier to see the sacredness in things. So
Well, I was on acid.
Right. Well, no shit.
I'm not even kidding.
I know you're not. That's why it's awesome. But that's what I'm saying. Like, exactly. So I think what it points to, is that everything is obviously sacred.
Yeah.
But when we're open or receptive to it and our filters are down, we can recognize that as the case. But I also wonder when I say that, like, like what if I put on like a shitty EDM record?
Yeah.
I mean, I could get like the energy of it in some ways, but it's just like, it's derivative. It's shitty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wonder where that fits in. And I know it obviously fits into the sacredness, but it's not my preferred
Well,
sacred.
I was wondering the same thing this weekend. I was like, could I listen to bad music right now and really get it? Because what happens to me when I'm on this stuff is like I become the song. I become the idea for the song. I get it.
Yeah.
I don't play any instruments, so that's a very special thing for me. It helps me understand the Grateful Dead for the first time a few months ago.
Totally.
Never. I just didn't get
song?
it. I couldn't hear it. It was the record Live Dead from 1969.
Yeah.
The first song is Black Star, and it's like a half-hour version.
Yeah.
So we threw that on basically after we took a massive dose of LSD, and
That's the best way to do it.
I couldn't even tell you anything about these songs or this record besides like I get it. I got it. I got it. And I'm way down, and basically I feel like new pathways were opened because not only did I appreciate the Grateful Dead and really get what they're all about and what they're doing, but now I'm like listening to jazz all the time. I don't know, and I don't know if the two you know better than me are grateful.
Well, there's
Grateful Dead have any-
improvisation. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the greatest gifts of jazz was there was no set determining thing guiding. I mean, there was some structure. There's the bass and a drum usually hitting out a repetitive rhythm, for basses, but like, whether it's Charlie Parker on the saxophone or Thelonious Monk, like they're improvising. So that definitely is like, there's huge influences in that in the Grateful Dead because they would improvise for hours at a time.
Yeah.
Like just, they're the same songs, but they're not. It's the same reason that I think I started to like electronic music is there was all these remixes of the same thing or an old song remix for a new way.
So you were like into the Grateful Dead early?
No, so I wasn't. You know what got me into the Grateful Dead? The show Freaks and Geeks.
Really?
Yeah, Freaks and Geeks, there's an episode where Lindsay, the main character, smokes weed for the first time, and she puts on a copy of American Dream, and they play...
Beauty.
American Beauty, right, yeah. So you see how big of a Grateful Dead fan I am. But, she puts it on, and the first song that plays is Box of Rain. And I've heard Grateful Dead songs. I heard Sublime's, Scarlet Begonias. Like, I've heard songs.
Yeah.
But for some reason, like, they're showing her smoking weed for the first time, getting into it. I'm like, oh, shit, that song's really good. So I got the album, American Beauty, and listened to it, and I was like, oh, shit, like, this is really, really good. I'm not a huge Grateful Dead fan. I don't listen to a lot of Grateful Dead. I'm not a huge Grateful Dead fan. I just... jam bands in particular are not something that I ever gravitated to.
But what about EDM? Isn't it like, are you saying
so EDM, EDM is also a moniker and an acronym that basically got co-opted, It's like, I'm trying to think of like another analogy, but I can't. But it basically got like taken over. EDM used to just mean, like in the 90s, electronic dance music. Yeah. There was no other way of describing what it was, and it wasn't what you hear now and refer to as like it's like a genre unto itself, which is weird. What I liked about electronic music is that they were typically these 2 to 3 hour mixes where people would fuse songs together. And they were just like outrageous sounds and arrangements that humans couldn't recreate in physical reality, although there were elements taken from real instrumentation that just was like incredible. Like I was like, this is endless opportunity. And so then I started getting into making that type of music and just realized it's an infinite game. Like music is the coolest fucking thing ever. There's always more music being created. You will never be able to listen to all of it, yet there's so much good stuff. Like you could spend every second of every day for the rest of your life finding songs you loved and not run out. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I know. It's a beautiful thing. I thought about that the other day. I was like, I think I'd be cool with never hearing a song that I've already heard ever again. Like because that's how open the pathways feel right now. Like like it's like let's I don't know. I've now turned it over to the algorithms and I let Spotify.
Well, Spotify discovers so good. What the fuck? How do they do it?
I don't know. They like, and I'm like, first of all, how did I not find half these songs? Because I've been a crazy nerd my whole life.
Right.
And but then it just is to what you're saying. There's just so much stuff out there. So many tapped in motherfuckers from all angles, like doing this stuff.
It's my favorite artistic medium. I mean,
Yeah.
It's
Me
obviously something that pulls really deeply. And one of my favorite books is Hazrat Inayat Khan's The Mysticism of Sound and Music. 100% get it. 100% read it. It's fucking awesome.
What is it?
It's essentially, he's a Sufi mystic. So Sufism is a branch of Islam, which I know essentially nothing about Islam. I really don't know a lot. I know it's an Abrahamic religion. I know that it's stigmatized, and I know there's probably some really good stuff, and like other Abrahamic religions, some not good stuff. But Sufism is the mystic side of it. And these are people who, you know, are delving into the more like Bob Marley aspects of, you know, the religion and philosophy. So Hazrat Inayat Khan was an incredible, I believe he was a sitar player. I could be wrong, but he played, no, it was another instrument. I forget the name of it. It's some special thing. I forget the name of it though. But he was like one of the best in the world. And he basically gave it up and never played again. And he only would teach orally, basically certain things about Sufism. And his basic theory, I mean, there's so much of it, but his basic theory is that sound is the basis of everything. And what he talks about explicitly in this book that was written really long time ago, he talks about if you keep drilling down, he talks about scientists. This is, and I want to say really long time ago, probably like 50, 60 years ago, before quantum physics was really popular. He's like, if you keep drilling down, scientists will eventually discover that everything is just vibrating matter. And that's string theory. That's what quantum physics says. If you just keep drilling down, it's not actually there. It's empty space and these little vibrating strings. One of the popular quantum theories. So he essentially says that this is also backed up by every world major religion and philosophy. If you look like the word, first there was the word is God. So the sound is the first thing. If you look in Vedic, Om, that's the primordial sound that you tap into. It's the first thing. He's like, he gives all these examples. He's like, so it's important to understand the nature of what sound is. And he essentially says that it's the essence and manifestation of the divine, and it's the first and primordial, basically physical basis for everything.
Wow.
So which I think why it makes sense that people like music.
Well, and also the urge to make it.
And the urge to make, and this is something that I think is really important too. Like, everyone can make music. Like, it is not, some people may have certain karmic dispositions or certain inborn talents that make them predisposed to being quickly adept at
like playing an instrument.
Playing an instrument. Like, I was one of these people with saxophone, but I'll tell you the truth of it is, even if you're one of those people, there is literally no correlation between that and being able to like make beautiful music. Because what happened to me is, like, I was really good at saxophone when I was young, 8 to like 14. It's like the best. Wherever I went, I was the best. I picked it up faster. I knew how to do everything, but I didn't practice that much. And my teacher would yell at me, and I'd be these awkward conversations where, like, my mom's paying this guy to teach me every week, and he's like, "You fucking, what's the matter with you?" Robbie Robertson, that was his name.
That was your
Robbie Robinson was the name.
Robertson.
No, Robbie Robinson. But basically, I was really good, but I didn't practice. People started getting better than me.
People that weren't as naturally talented.
People that didn't have like the natural ability started getting a lot better than me because I stopped caring specifically about that. And eventually, you know, I sold my saxophone, which I regret that decision every day now.
You sold your saxophone, bought an N64 or some shit?
No, I mean, I sold my saxophone like 8 years ago. It was a Selmer Mark VI. I think I sold it for like, I don't know, $4,000. It's probably worth like $11,000.
Really? I didn't even know you could have a saxophone that expensive.
Well, here's the truth about that saxophone. It was a good saxophone. It wasn't a great saxophone. And it has nothing to do with price. It was just, it didn't play. I had played really great saxophones before, and it didn't play like one. So I knew it wasn't like the best of the best. But this doctor from Columbia, came down and bought it, and he was really happy. But got off track. Oh yeah, the talent thing. So my point is with the talent thing is everyone can learn how to play amazing music. And I think what is really the prerequisite for making like beautiful, incredible music, regardless of talent, is a connection to that divine element that music actually is. And if you can, you've already mastered that.
But now could I learn an instrument?
Easily, like super easily. Yeah, not even a question. Like, what I would recommend, the two instruments I would recommend starting with, and I'd probably start with keyboard.
That's what I want to do.
Well, then you're already on the right track, because what I would do is get a MIDI controller, $50 to $200. You could get one with weighted keys or not, and teach yourself piano. Like, you can, I mean, I could teach you basic stuff, but like, you can look online, like how to make a chord. You know, you don't even need to know music theory. You could take some acid or take some mushrooms.
That's what I'm thinking.
Play with the piano. You'll want some framework to probably bridge the gap, but you could also just record it and just say like, hey, I'm new John Cage. This is my new piece. It's called Acid. Enjoy. So, but yeah, man, anyone can learn. Most people can tap out a rhythm pretty intuitively. You can learn drums. Like, everyone has.
I feel like I'm really good at that. I feel like this is what happened, man. In 4th grade, they were assigning instruments to people, and I wanted to play drums, really.
Yeah.
And I got trombone. And
you got assigned an instrument?
Yeah. Isn't that weird? Because I mean, honestly, it sent me on a track where I'm not musically inclined at all.
That's the
but
worst
instrument
for a little kid to learn.
Yeah, and I was small, and it was big, and I had asthma, so it required.
It's impossible.
Yeah, dude. It was.
You
crazy.
got fucked up, man.
I got fucked up, so off track, and by 8th grade, I was like, I don't want to be in band anymore, and I quit the band. Whatever, and I never got into music. But now, at this age, and doing the exploration I'm doing, I hear music and I want to compose it. You know what I mean? I want to get it out of me. You know, and that must be the greatest itch in the world to scratch.
Yes,
you know?
but it also drives people insane. I mean, but it does. Like Jimi Hendrix famously, I forget what the exact quote, but he was like, like it tortures me, the stuff I can't get out.
Really?
Music. Yeah.
So what do you mean? He would hear it? He
could hear
play that, or
dude, like I'm sure, like most people, whether you're a musician or not, sometimes you go to sleep and you hear the best song ever, and
That's
it's
me.
no
That's
other song,
yeah.
but and you're making it in your head, and you're following. You're like, holy shit, this is the best song ever. Okay. That's bad enough. Now imagine if you actually had the technical capacity to recreate that. Like I could do that, right?
Yeah.
But then you wake, I'll get it in the morning. I'll get it in the morning. And you can't write it down. It's not a little note. It's not a little voice note you can leave. It doesn't jog. I have so many voice notes. It's a complex, completed thing. You hear it.
Yeah.
That can drive you crazy.
Yeah.
But the good news is now more than ever, the thing that I was talking about where you can transpose a clip of music and make it into melody and drums. Now the distance, this is why people with very little technical proficiency can become like pop stars. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole other facet of that goes involved, but like you can make music with very little knowledge
of
doing music. Like everyone. I mean, okay, here I'm gonna talk some shit.
Man.
Can I talk some shit?
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, that's what I'm wondering.
Okay, I'm gonna talk some shit. I feel bad, and I don't have any. I never met these guys. I have nothing personally against them. They're nominated for 3 Grammys. Okay, this is blowing my mind.
Chainsmokers.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know. I've never heard them before.
So I knew these. They ran when I first moved to New York, I was out at like the big clubs, like the famous, like where the athletes are going and shit. And it was not my scene. I was there because like I knew people who get me in for free and we could drink for free, and it was like one of those situations.
I can't picture you.
We were smoking blunts in the club, rap music blasting. Like you have no idea. You have no idea. I know. I was there though, and like often. And like, it wasn't my scene, so I was definitely like kind of an outsider. But like, I got to. What honestly kept me coming back, Sean, is that I got to smoke blunts in a fucking club.
I know, that's pretty dope.
It's like
it's chill. It's chill.
It was amazing. Like and like right up by the booth, like main table. It was fucking awesome.
Wow.
Okay, so there was these guys were up and coming DJs. There's a lot of these DJ kind of collectives, especially in and around the city, that you need a night here, and I actually knew one of the guys, and like I got gigs through that DJ thing. I was just kind of learning the ropes, and they'd put me in some place, and like I had no right to be there, and like I'd play like kind of what I wanted, but kind of what I thought they wanted. But yeah, I mean, so it was cool, and I'm very appreciative that I got that opportunity. But there were other DJs who were technically decent, had some level of skills, but we're playing what I would say is like music I wouldn't want to hear out or at my home.
Right.
Like really top 40 remix EDM type stuff mixed with a little hip hop. Not bad and enjoyable, just to be clear. Like it wasn't like they were shitty and like train wrecking, transitions together. It was just like stuff that like, this is like the easy button. You're hitting the easy button. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're hitting the buttons here that make this something that people are going to enjoy it, but it's not really like you're not advancing anything, and you're clearly not trying to like push anyway. And that's a judgment call, and that's subjective. Okay, but these guys were there, and they were just like all the other people. And most of the DJs in this particular collective, like you had to be like kind of good looking. It was like a marketing thing. Like you didn't have to sign a contract or anything, but they knew like if you put up looking very good. Yeah. So these people, and they were just playing other people's stuff. At some point, I think they signed with some marketing agency. And since this is like probably like 4 or 5 years ago, since that time, I've watched them go from like really like, and I feel bad saying this. they did not have what I would refer to as a lot of talent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was just like, really, like, these are people I'm like, this isn't a craft for you. This isn't a skill for you.
Yeah.
You know, you care about this because you're getting like pussy and you're up on stage and you get to drink and you're called the fucking chain smokers, right? So, so I've watched them rise through the Billboard charts, and I listen to music, and I hope people who are listening understand this. I really give all music a fair opportunity, even if not the first time. Like, I recognize that I didn't, and I'll go back, and that's how I find really eclectic and diverse forms of music. It's like the only way. I think it's a real skill, and it goes back to the Hazrat thing. That's how you discover things in life too. You have to be open-minded. So I give this shit a fair shake. I watched their performance. I forget where it was. It was like something on the VMA, and it's not like I stalk these people. This is like a random thing. They're very popular, so like they will come across. You know about them, right?
I don't even know their songs, but I've heard of them. I was able to name it on your vague descriptions.
Right, which is nuts.
Yeah.
All right, okay. So I've watched them just like, and now they're nominated for Grammys, and I swear to God, man, like, it blows my fucking mind.
Yeah.
And I don't consider myself any particular rare talent. Like, I'm some amazing, like, Aphex Twin type of person. But I do know, like, what function music can serve and serves in my life.
Yeah.
And it just... It's kind of like the equivalent of like Donald Trump being president.
Yeah.
Like the Chainsmokers being nominated for Grammys. Like, I have to tell you, like, that's Donald Trump being like, he's in the election. If they win, I don't know, man. Like,
well, but now, I mean, and to bring it back to my boy Frank Ocean, I love this guy. All of a sudden, now I'm reading that he didn't even submit his album to the Grammys because he doesn't think it's a great representation of what's going on in black culture and music. And now people like Kanye aren't showing up, even though they submitted and are nominated. They're not showing up, kind of in solidarity.
The Grammy sucks. Can we be honest?
I know, man.
I mean,
they miss it every time. They miss it every time.
It's just like the Grammys turned into, I don't know when, but it turned into just like, I don't know, man. Like, I hate thinking that we're just getting older and out of touch with things. I just listen to music that came out in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. 2000s, I start to get hard pressed to find stuff. There is tons of music, and just to be clear, like, I probably have listened to thousands of hours of music from the 2000s that I love. I'm not saying there's no good music, but I'm saying the stuff that rises the charts publicly and popularly, like,
it really went off the rails.
What the fuck is going? And just to be clear, I love a lot of Justin Bieber songs. Justin Bieber gets some heavy hitters. Katy Perry gets some heavy hitters, and those are great fucking songs.
Definitely.
But there's also shit up there that I hear on the radio, like when I'm driving my car now. I'm like, how did we get here? Like, how is this what is? And it's, I think, it's.
How did we get there? I mean, because it probably coincides with like with Napster or something like that. Because
it's a
did
technology-driven thing.
Maybe
so.
It could have been Limp Biscuit.
I disagree. I don't think so, because Limp Bizkit had some jams. No matter what people want to say,
break stuff.
Yeah, no, it's bad. Don't get me wrong. But you could make an argument that the people who are producing Limp Bizkit like knew how to make a sound appeal to a certain people. Like you're right. Limp Bizkit might have been the start of this, but I mean, what you're alluding to is marketing co-opted an art medium, the most popular form of it in the biggest country for outputting this stuff to the world, and that set up a model and a paradigm that continues. And this is kind of how we got Trump.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
This is the logical conclusion of this stuff. And to me, what this means is I'm subscribing to the I Ching theory here, and hopefully it flips soon. But like when you get to the maximum of one thing, it flips to the other thing.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that Donald Trump is the maximum. That the Patriots winning the Super Bowl is the maximum.
The chain smokers.
The chain smokers are the maximum. I'm sure there's the factory farming, the unsustainable ecological things we're doing is the maximum.
Yeah.
And that this will flip and isn't just the beginning or the middle of a death spiral.
Yeah. Peak capitalism
where just, God, man. I mean, where we are.
How much further could it even go? I mean, like
so much further, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about Black Mirror.
Yeah, that's true.
I saw. Have you seen the one Black Mirror that's not depressing yet?
The one where the lesbian couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
That's the best one. So we just saw that last night.
Yeah.
So
you're like, I could sleep. I can't.
I was so I was like, this is the nicest thing anyone has done for me in my life.
Yeah.
That they decided not to scare the shit out of me before bed.
Yeah.
That's such a good one.
Yeah, it is. It's a really
and
good
like
one.
Alexis was asking me today, or she was driving the train, or we were driving to the train. Would you do that? And I was like, listen, they said you could leave if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And like, granted, we're in those weird machines and everything, but like, if you have an option of leaving at any point, maybe I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
I'm not so confident in every other thing that could potentially happen. Who knows? So that was a really good one.
Yeah. What do you think's going to happen when you die?
Truthfully, I do believe what's going to happen is very similar to what Tibetan Buddhists describe.
That's how I feel too.
Very much so. And I do think that I have done that before, whatever that means. And Buddhists might say there's no I, so you're just talking caca. But I do think that is essentially a similar thing, which is you have certain opportunities to recognize your true nature. And if you do, you have an opportunity to potentially leave the samsaric or illusory realms of existence.
And never come back into birth
You
again,
could go to a Buddha world. You could merge with whatever. You could just dissolve. Or you could, which some people do, choose to recognize your Buddha nature and say, you know what? I'm going to go back in there because not everyone's here yet, so you got to go back in. Say what's up to everyone, be like, hey, maybe you guys, you don't have to do this. This is pretty shitty.
Yeah.
And then do that and dedicate. That's the Bodhisattva's vow. That's the vow that you take, that you will stave off your own enlightenment or detachment from an illusory world until everyone gets on the boat with you and you go over or you go back and ferry people across, essentially.
Wow.
So essentially, to get a little more specific, I don't know if this is what the Tibetan Buddhists say, but you have these opportunities, and the Tibetan Book of Dead, if you've ever tried to read it, it's not as easy as people like to pretend. Let's go, just read it. It's the crazy shit in the world. It's just,
I have mad respect for people like you and Duncan and like who can like sit down and like read
I
that
only
and be like,
read probably the first 150 pages, and it's a big fucking thing. No, but I mean, what you're reading, for people who have not cracked it, is these very, very detailed, and I think they're used for visualization practices in meditation. So that's why they're so detailed, and they're actually wanting to give a verifiable report of what's happening. But it's like, you go through this channel, this like breath channel, and you get to the north gate, and there on the north gate is the blue-headed king with the sword and the dagger in this hand, and over there's a throat, and his consort is with him, and they all have names, like really complicated Tibetan names. And then that's the north gate, and then there's the sub north gate, and it's this color, and then there's the east gate, the south gate, the west gate, and they're all like this, and like it's just so many pages of that. So I don't know. Essentially, this is what I think happens though when you die, and I don't know. I really have no fucking idea. I really have to be very clear about that. But this is what I do. This is what I'm believing right now. You essentially have opportunities to recognize your true nature, and how that's presented is not just like, hey, you recognize your true nature. You have to, I believe, deal with the karmic implications of this most recent life. Kind of review what people talk about, the life and review thing. See and feel and experience. Not dissimilar. I've never taken ayahuasca, but from what a lot of people seem to describe, they have to process certain kind of themes or things in their life that they maybe didn't realize, like how uncompassionate they have been in their lives, or how anger has hurt so many people. So those types of things, I think you process through kind of and this is instant. So the Buddhists, I believe, say it's 49 days, something like that. So before you actually leave and, just make this transition. So it's quite a lengthy process, and God knows what it feels like. Time, I believe the boundary of time pretty much just dissolves almost completely. So then you also go through this eventual period where you can recognize it there. If you go through that, you eventually face what are known as, I think, the 10,000 wrathful and peaceful deities. And these are manifestations. So if you were, I think the way it works, and this is just me speculating, if you grew up in a Native American tribe, you wouldn't see Tibetan 10,000 demons. You would see some psychic manifestation of these things in your culturally appropriate, so you could process what's going on.
Using your hard drive with your metaphors.
Basically, and you would see these things, and that's supposed to be like the worst thing ever. It's like a nightmare of dreams where you're just like, and what they're not supposed to be terrifying in a bad way. They're supposed to be terrifying in a way that wakes you up. So snaps you out.
Does sound like ayahuasca from what I've heard.
All right, so it snaps you out of your delusion. It's not so like, I'm an asshole, I'm going to kill you. But even though it probably feels like that, and then there's peaceful ones. That's another opportunity to potentially, and I'm butchering this whole kind of timeline here. That's another opportunity to recognize your true nature. I think eventually you have this last opportunity where it's called the clear light of awareness. And this is this white light that a lot of people talk about. And this apparently is very hard to look at and stay conscious. And so most people black out. And so then I think once you black out, you have like, this is you're about to be born again. You're going into the bardo of becoming.
Yeah.
And so then I think there are realms that...
Sorry. That's related.
So there's these realms that exist, and they're different color lights. And so they correspond to like the animal realm, the human realm, the demigod realm, the god realm. And the realm that represents humanity is blue. I don't know if that's because it's Earth, but it's like this blue light. And so then you start to move towards this blue light because it's familiar and it's a habit, right? And you're doing it. You're not doing it with awareness. You're just doing it as a reaction like we do everything here. So then you go towards this light. This is if you're getting reincarnated as a human again, which apparently is... Chances of that, just so everyone is clear, is like very rare.
I was going to ask you about that. With all the beings in the whole universe.
Yeah, I think they describe it as like there's a ring, like a inner tube on the ocean, the whole ocean, and there's a turtle, and the turtle comes up every like 10,000 years, and the chances of becoming a human is that it gets right in the middle of the ring, and it lives in the whole ocean. So it's like basically like, it's like
little opportunity.
Yeah, it's not like the thing that it's very precious because there's a reason for that. But so you go towards this blue light, and you then, and this is assuming you're being human, you see your eventual parents having sex, and you get attracted to that. I don't think it's like a sexual thing. Who knows? And you move towards that, and then that eventually pulls you into the womb, and then you are born. Rinse and repeat.
Wow.
Yeah, I think.
Well, you know what's crazy?
Makes sense to me.
I was reading this psychedelic manual that has a whole bunch of essays in there, and I think it's is it Rick Strassman that wrote about, and it's the first time I ever heard this, how long a baby in the womb takes to develop the pineal gland. 49 days.
Oh, is that right?
Dude.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, dude. We just well, maybe we'll talk about it on the other one, but Cass can read to us from that section. It was blowing my mind.
Pineal gland.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting thing.
That's when that comes into that's when that grows, and that's what's giving us DMT that may be the key to consciousness. I don't know. I
think it is. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people... I mean, it makes sense because that's how the ayahuasca phenomenon in the world is like, I've never seen a substance or thing blow up like that, because someone in my family, like a distant cousin or relative in France, came to a family reunion we had, I think in like 2005 or something, and he was like one of the leading researchers of ayahuasca.
In 2005?
Something like that. Yeah, really long time ago. And like no one knew about this. And my mom went to Peru a couple times, but no one knew about this.
Did she take it?
Yeah, and she met my eventual stepdad.
Wow,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah. She went to Peru a bunch and took it, and yeah. This is a long time ago. Yeah, so
she wasn't scared.
I don't know. I mean, she did it. She had a calling, right? The people who do it have a calling. I wait to hear if I have a calling. I have signs, but I'm not there yet. Yeah. I've seen it since then, when I was just like, what is this weird fucking thing my mom is doing? Like, I don't know. She's like, yeah, this guy knows all about this plant. He's in our family. I'm like, okay. Frederic was his name. It's French. And just like how it's blossomed to now, like, everyone knows about it at the very least, and they know it as a tool, and a lot of people have taken it. People are taking it. I heard someone told me someone took it in the Bronx. They knew someone who took it. That's not good.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
was that you? Did you tell me that?
No. Okay. Well, but I've read articles about people taking it at Williamsburg. I know that there's a
don't do that.
Yeah, and that's I've heard a lot of people say that, but then I've heard other people be like, you don't have to go to the jungle.
You don't. No, there's places up in the Hudson Valley.
Yeah. Okay. That's that's what I want to do. Split the difference, maybe.
Split the difference.
Because I'm not big into like, to me, going down to the jungle, that's enough. That's enough right there without tripping my balls off for 7 days straight. You know?
No, I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to tell me. I mean, these must be like the consciousness barriers we're putting up for ourselves. Because like dude,
totally.
I don't.
That's exactly.
I'm sorry. I don't. I know when we die, we probably see things way worse. I don't ever want to see like a 7-inch cockroach.
Yeah.
I'm good on that
that's
for
what I
now.
mean.
And
That's
if
what
I'm
I mean.
tripping on ayahuasca
Forget about
or
it.
anything, if I smoke weed and I saw a 6, if a 7-inch cockroach walked across your floor right now, we would stop recording and be like, no, we
Yeah,
got to deal with this
yeah,
shit because I'm not okay anymore. So I get it, man. I get it.
That's one of the best things about this apartment. I've never,
Yeah.
we've never had a bug or a rodent or anything in here. And when we complain about the rent, we build that in. We're like, okay, so say we're to move
On
somewhere
6th Street,
else.
yeah.
You know, that's an expensive. That's a thing you got to think about and deal with. And like, oh, there's mice, there's rats, or whatever.
Well, there's mice in the Hudson Valley.
Oh fuck yeah!
I saw a little mice. We left the sink like not totally clean the other night, and I kept hearing this spoon rattle. I'm like, who left the water on? Yeah, it's like and it was dark and like it was the perfect time for a mouse to come out. I mean, I saw it scurry away, but you know,
So
it's the country.
what are you gonna do? Are you gonna kill
It's
it?
not. No. Well, if I had a cat, my cat who lives with my mom's now, Isis. Unfortunately named at this point, but a really great name for a cat. Before,
it is.
Before, but she was the mouse assassin in Boston. I moved into a place with her where there was a lot of mice. 2 days, she killed like 6 mice. They never came back.
Oh wow.
I think basically it's just like don't leave shit out that they can get.
Yeah.
And they don't come back. Like I haven't seen it since.
I don't know how being a homeowner and protecting this man-made thing from nature will square with my veganism and
Well, let me ask you a
being a
question.
sensitive little guy.
I've actually covered this question before
Really?
with a guest because I was reading a book by this Tibetan. He was like the Dalai Lama's teacher, Chongla Rinpoche, and he was saying that he was like a recognized at a very young age to go like study at this famous monastery in Tibet. This is before the Chinese came, and they were like rolling up with this whole entourage, and he was like a little kid, and these monks come out of this monastery running out, like screaming, like, whoa, stop. And so like there was an ant trail. And they were like, you gotta go. You gotta wait for the ants.
Wow.
So like I asked this question because at where I was living in Maryland, there were ants. Like an ant infestation. They would come and they would fucking make little trails and like I was Ant Hitler. I killed so many.
Oh no.
I mean, and I felt bad every time. Okay, I don't mind to pay me out. I'll just do something
That's what's
like
gonna happen when you die. You're gonna
yeah,
relive that
just be
moment from
Black
their
Mirror
perspective.
ants. Yeah. So I asked the question to someone, and I mean, I think this is one of those things where ideally, here's the question. If you start making decisions, and you do have to draw the line somewhere, like you do it with like veganism and like you're just like, no, I can't fathom that. You know why you made that decision.
Yeah.
If you don't have that same kind of feeling when you're like, you know what, if I got infested by ants or spiders here, would I kill them?
Yeah.
If you're like, you know, I'd probably kill them, then you should do that. Because if you're doing it inauthentically, that shit will never work. It's a Maharaji quote that I think is good, but it can be self-destructive if you let it get to that point, which is it's essentially the paraphrasing is you're not done with something until you're done with it. Like you can't force the issue. So like if it doesn't feel like an authentic thing that you're really going to be able to do, because listen, if you start going down the road where you're not killing ants, then you're damn close to moving into KPL. You're going to be but you're probably not. Is my point. You know what I mean?
I could. It's funny because you know I was listening to I barely ever listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, but he had fucking Henry Rollins on.
I barely listen. This is why Joe Rogan's so popular. I barely listen, but I listen to Alex Jones one.
Oh yeah, I made it 10 minutes into that.
I watched the whole thing.
Fuck that. But Henry Rollins goes on there and he's going 1,000,000 miles a minute in life, like seriously, since he was a kid. And I'm like, and he's not going to stop. He's just got this certain energy to him. And, you know, there's this human instinct to kind of like compare and be like, oh God, I feel like a fucking piece of shit. But I'm like, it ain't my trip. If anything, my trip's the opposite. I feel like I'd be happiest if I was a monk. If I could just meditate.
You think so?
Yeah, kind of.
I don't disagree.
It's easy for me to say 3 days after I took a really heavy dose of
That's
acid.
why I was going to ask. That's what I was eventually going to get to, but I won't even break it down like that because I think you can get there without having taken any psychedelics, if you're meditating enough, if you're feeling that in tune with what's going on. The question is that your best place to serve people?
No.
That's the question. Because if it's
that.
not that, and listen, there are people like, I think his name is Nick Vreeland. He was like the son of a very famous fashion icon. I think she wrote for Vogue. My wife knows about her. But he was like a really high fashion, like into the scene, New York elite. And he's now Tibetan, recognized, one of the first Western lamas. I think he was the first Western lama appointed head of a monastery in Tibet, or not in Tibet. It's India, Dharamsala, I believe, somewhere around there. I fucked that up, but it's somewhere around there. My point is like that is an option. He just goes around. He's very simple. He still has a camera. He takes pictures because he was an amazing photographer. Yeah. There's a documentary on Netflix called "A Monk in a Camera." Really good. Check it out.
I'll check that out.
My point is with the disassociating and becoming a monk. That is one way to go about it. The chances of being born in this country with the privilege we have. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but I think it's probably for a reason. And this also goes back to, I do think we choose to incarnate. Like, I think this is kind of like a decision. I was going to ask you that
when we got on my podcast. Yeah. Do you think Eli chose you guys?
Yeah, I do. I definitely do. Or we chose him and it's like a symbiotic thing. Because I'll tell you this. This is the fucking truth. I don't know what we would do if we got like a fussy kid. Or like an unruly kid. He's the best kid I've ever seen. I didn't know, like, and I'm sure every parent kind of feels like this, but I'm telling you, he's the most easygoing, happiest. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And like, we're just like thanking our lucky stars because we're like this kid was like, some babies have colic where they scream.
I know, and it's not like the parents' fault. It's nothing.
No. Why would it be the parents' fault? It's nothing to do with that. It's just the way it is. It's only the parents' fault in the sense that it's probably your karma to have to deal with that. But like,
absolutely.
I just don't want to burn off all the good karma I have because I do think that is something that is chosen. Now, I think it's more along the lines of an unconscious decision. Yeah. Than like how we think about like, I want some ice cream or I want to go on the internet. Like it's not that. It's some urge and the principle of karma at play. And I think it's possible to break that, but
well, I mean, and I've definitely I've woken up to it, and it's only been honestly since I discovered meditation and psychedelics and really kind of waking up to who I am. It's not to say I wasn't that person all along. I was just doing it more unconsciously. And now, I joke about being a monk or whatever, but I know based on how my heart feels and how good I feel, and that I met a person like Cass, who's my girlfriend and producer, that I guess my purpose really is to go out there and make these films. And, I can say...
Right now it is.
Right now it is. Right
you don't
now
have to lock yourself into any fucking frame.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, it very much feels like that's the way I best serve the world, especially right now when a guy like Trump gets in there.
I agree.
I feel extremely focused, and I'm like, I have purpose, because what I do is try. I feel like, and I can say this because it hasn't always been this way. I'm seeing the world in a really interesting, loving, inspiring way. I'm devastated with awe and gratitude every day. And I think picking up the camera every now and then and bringing people into that world, and I'm surrounded with really talented people that can take that vision and make it happen with light. That's all these things are. It's just images. It's just light. Right. And spread consciousness that way. It feels like it feels very important. Yeah. For the first time. Like very much so for the first time for me. I'm like, okay, this is my purpose. This is what I was put here to do right now. Maybe not always the case.
Hello, Synchronicity listener. Why am I interjecting in the middle of an episode so rudely? Where Sean's talking about cool stuff, I'm talking. Why am I interrupting? I wanted to let you know about the Synchronicity Facebook group. It is growing in size. We're very close to 800 people as you're listening to this. If it's in February 2017, if it's in the future, we're probably over like 3 million people by now. If you're any time in the future, I'm very confident on that. If you want to join, we're talking about cool stuff. There are some of the smartest, most engaged, insightful people I've met on the internet or in real life in this community. If you want to join, go to syncpodcast.com and you will see in the menu on your phone, on your computer, people still use those, right? You will see a link in the menu called Facebook group. Click that, ask to be approved. I will approve you. That's it. Again, there's really fun stuff going on in there. The reason I'm touting this community is I have been blown away with how it's evolved just in the past 2-3 months since I started it. Get involved. Say hello. have a good time. I'm pretty active there. So are a lot of other people. This is kind of the bridge to some of these real world events that we're going to be doing. I mentioned it in the intro. March 18th, MindPod Network live event in Los Angeles. That's all I got to say. That's it. All right. There'll be more information. Shoot me an email at noah@syncpodcast.com if you want to chat. That's it. Back to the episode.
Well, I would probably say it has always been the case, but you probably have an awareness of it now that probably will give it another element to it, which I think is important. I think aligning your purpose and what you're doing and knowing about it, like ultimately, it gets harder to do shittier stuff. And shittier, again, like these are all subjective and objective terms. I think if you're doing the thing that is authentic to you, regardless, and like you know this better than anyone, like commercial success does not define anything. It doesn't have it defines it in the paradigm of a context that people can understand who consume things. Yeah. But like the worth of something, like that's why I think we quickly became very good friends. And Michael Donovan recognized to connect us because he saw a similar vein in what we were trying to do, even though really nothing like overtly on the top related, except we both like smoking weed a lot, which is good. It's really good. It works. It does work. So I do think that that's incredibly important. And I agree. I mean, I think you could go to a monastery. I think I don't know what would happen. I don't know. I think about myself in a monastery, and there have been times in my life where I've just been so tuned in to the point where, like, you know, it was just like one step away just from dropping everything, identity, just everything, really one step away. But then, you know, inevitably, I think if you really pay attention to the signs around you and, you know, try to really separate what you've set up for yourself just in terms of wants and needs and, you know, what you think you want and what has actually been manifested around you, it'll point you in the right direction. And I think that's what the great thing about this awareness stuff is it gives you the perspective and wisdom to see what's going on and be able to make like a pretty clear-headed decision. And so yes, you have the opportunity to do whatever you want. Could be a monk, could be anything. But yeah, I think you recognize kind of what's going on.
Well, and honestly, Michael and you guys like encouraging me to do a podcast it's really helped kind of sharpen everything and provide me another little something to push off of to realize what the documentaries even are. Because you know, I think I don't know. I think just podcasting is such a different medium. I feel like when I put these out, they're just like in the river of history, and there it goes. And the films but the films could be revisited 20 years from now in a really significant way. Whereas I don't know if anyone's going to listen to this conversation 20 years from now.
Podcasts are more, I do believe they're probably more transient and ephemeral. Like they're not going to be something that like a movie, like you're saying, a long form media. That said, who the fuck knows? Yeah,
who knows?
Who really knows? Like I have to think about this sometimes, you know, like is Eli going to stumble upon synchronicity? Probably. Like, totally. I mean, like archived somewhere. I mean, so yeah, I mean, so I do think that they probably, to know the context of these conversations is somewhat important, but I just think like you said with the podcasting stuff is like the dynamic interplay between two or more people having a conversation, or even just one person. Yeah. It's just a monologue. That is, especially in real time, so if it's, you know, weekly, close enough, that is a new form of communication. And it can be so like hyper localized and community based where, you know, 30, 50,000, 100,000 people are listening, millions of people. When you get up there listening to this live or pretty close to live, that's fucking nuts. No one has come to terms with that. I mean, no one has come to terms. Everyone is, it's like the Trump stuff every day. And I was sucked into, I'm really happy to say, and it seems like based on my Twitter feed, a lot of other people too, it seems like we pulled out of the immediate gaping, sucking chest wound of the Trump president. And I don't mean everything is like, I spoke to a dude, the podcast I'm releasing, this dude wrote The Ethicist for the New York Times, you know, all dealing with ethical questions. He disagreed with everything I said. I was like, listen, this is an opportunity. This is going to be, you know, it's very bad. It's going to get bad, but this is, you know, it's finally up on the surface. Now we can deal with it. Yeah. He was like, nah, this shit is the worst. He's like, this is the worst thing ever. It's only going to get worse. You're going to see it's going to be the worst thing ever. You're basically making the argument as it's the Reichstag fire. This is just what happens before they totally take control and fuck over the country. And I was like, all right, I respectfully disagree. Yeah. So like, I mean, you know, what was the context I was talking about this with? It was something. That ship has sailed.
Yeah, well, I mean, it happens.
The Trump stuff. Oh no, I remember. Okay, so it's the context of getting sucked into the vortex of this Trump stuff, and I'm just now being able to pull out and not have to tune into it.
Yeah.
So the power of being able to have conversations like these in the midst of where people, for the majority, I think, who are following mainstream media, and I don't say that like Alex Jones says it, I say it like, people following major outlets who maybe have corporate backers, who maybe have agendas. I'm not saying that like conspiracy theory. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. Maybe there's honest journalism. It's not the point. The point is if we can provide some type of antidote or some other questioning or paradigm or format, that's valuable now.
Absolutely.
And the weird thing is, and this is why I encourage everyone to either start or be on a podcast, and that's easy enough to do. And I'm sure, it's going to be funny. The kids aren't even they're going to be like, why the fuck you call these podcasts? This is just like something we do now with this app.
Yeah, exactly.
Dummies.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean call
it's
it a podcast?
such novelty to us.
Right. Well, to us, it's just like, well, a podcast, this is what we do, and we're going to call it this. Yeah. It's just conversations about stuff. Other people, all right, here's what I really think. You can become enlightened by yourself. You can totally do it. You can sit in a cave, you can do it.
That's a tough one.
You can do it. You can do it. Chances are you're going to fail. Like, you can do it hundreds of thousands of human incarnations. Doing it alone is so much harder than having other people and other things to bounce ideas off of, bounce fuck-ups off of, bounce real-world experience to get to the bottom of what's going on in the inside.
Yeah.
So that's why I think, again, it goes back to the being a monk thing. There's value in that. Praying for all beings at all times, devotedly and compassionately, I think can do worlds of good.
Somebody needs to be doing it.
Totally.
Holding the space for all of us.
Absolutely. I think it's possible to incorporate that mentality in the world now. I think the householder, the person in the world, especially in the West, where a lot of the seeds of these kind of destructiveness we're seeing now in the world were born. I think it's really important that we have people who can do both, who can be at least a bridge between some of these more introspective, detached, not in the world things, and people who are just like, I'm in the world, I'm here, like I can't, it's not practical. If everyone became a monk overnight, it wouldn't be like that smooth transition into utopia that we would like to think it would be. It's like everything would stop working, everything would be fucked, people would die, like millions and millions, maybe billions of people would die if like all air traffic controllers just like, all right, I'm a monk now. Yeah,
that would be the downfall of dosing the masses.
Well, I mean, one of them, I don't know. What do you think about dosing the masses?
Well, I've heard a lot more people speaking more boldly, smart people speaking more boldly about that lately. People I really like. Well, I have a guy, a friend I really like, named Nicholas Powers. He was on my podcast. He had a beautiful symposium the other night called "Using Psychedelics to End Racism and Classism." It's available on Facebook. They live streamed it, so it's available somewhere on there. But at the end, like, they were really making the case for, like, what it would be like and what it would do to dose Donald Trump or the White House or whatever, and it was very funny. And I don't know how something like that would work. I don't even know if I agree with something like that. But the thought is interesting, because it's basically like saying, like, this dude needs to wake up, and that's the greatest shortcut I've ever found.
Acid would do it for them?
No, I think it would freak them out,
right.
And the drug war would get
so much
fucking
worse.
Ramped up.
Right.
Everyone would be taking LSD piss tests.
They're like, yo, everyone who takes LSD is feeling like this?
Yeah.
We got to start murdering people. We go Duterte, the guy in, where is it? Fuck. The country where he's just murdering people, the drug people.
Yeah, the Philippines.
Yeah.
Yeah, God.
Duterte, right? He's insane.
How are we gonna... What could happen to a guy like Trump, who is so what's going to crack his consciousness? What's going to be the thing?
Nothing.
He's so padded.
No, he's locked in. I mean, I'm sure you've met people of all ages who have just like locked into their thing. That's it.
Anyone, go back to your hometown. The people that are, you can find very stubborn people who are just
like pretty much locked in, who kind of know there's other shit going on, but are just like, I'm at the point where if I'm going to investigate that, I got to go do this. And
Yeah.
it's just like, I'm good. I'm going to do that. And I get that like way of thinking. And I think we all do that in many different ways.
Oh, we build coffins of comfort, you know? We're
Just-
like, cool, this layer,
Yeah.
good like this.
Yeah, I mean, so I get it. I don't know, man. I don't know what's going to happen. I have a kid, so I don't know if that spurs optimism. I was definitely optimistic, I think, before I had a kid. And I also, like I was saying, where the guy who disagreed with me about this shit is, I think this is an opportunity. I use the cancer analogies, which is if you had cancer, you'd want to know you had cancer. Most people want to know because if it was treatable, you'd want to come up with a plan to fucking treat cancer. You wouldn't just want to be like, oh, like, I'm dead now. So if it's non-terminal, right, let's just use that. I don't think this is terminal. I don't think Donald Trump is terminal. We're baselining here. We're really getting down. It
close.
It might be terminal for the world we live in and the systems we live in.
As we know it.
As we know them. And I don't mean that in some like radical apocalyptic future. I just mean like we just bought a house. I don't see how that system that we're in that survives for another 50 years. It's impossible. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And everyone knows it. Everyone my age trying to buy a house is like, yo, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
This is like, I don't think that makes any sense.
It's not the values of the people coming up now.
So here's what I think happens. Since we have now an avatar of this destruction in Donald Trump, this is a wonderful opportunity for the people who didn't get that this shit isn't kind of working out. They're like, oh boy, this isn't working out. Fuck, my kids and their grandchildren are fucked. I gotta fucking start figuring it out. And they're spazzing. So many people, and I've seen this, like the people who are convinced that every Donald Trump person is evil as fuck. They're racist, they're misogynistic. Listen, I was trolling Patriots fans big time because everyone's friends with
I
them.
saw.
So,
that was beautiful. Thank you.
It's my favorite thing to do in the world. It really is. I secretly love Donald Trump because he has given me the perfect troll for Patriots. It's the best thing. It's the best. It's the only. I can't even go into that. That's my favorite thing in the world. But truthfully, this is an opportunity for us now to, here's what I was talking to my friend. She was looking to buy a house, and she's self-employed, and her husband works at First School, and she was like, what did you encounter? I was like, and I basically told you what I told you. It's like, couldn't afford this by ourselves. Are you kidding me? Like, we can get a loan by ourselves. Like, I'm self-employed. It's not possible. But I think is a really easy thing to implement. We see the early stages of this, and they're kind of not great. Is like, how about we set up what they used to do back in the days, where we set up essentially a crowd, local community sourced thing, where if we can find people who have the means and resources, either moderately or minimally, to help people cover the cost of getting a loan. Yeah. Collectively, and share the burden, so people can buy houses and they know who's going into the community, and people get to know that shit's gonna emerge. Douglas Rushkoff is doing a great job in his book, Throwing Rocks at the Google Bus, of talking specifically how this economy we're in and the global economy and everything, military industrial complex, is just an extractive model of wealth. And I would put up there with that and juxtapose that I do believe, I haven't seen anything that disproves this, that there's plenty of stuff to go around for the world. Plenty of food, plenty of water, plenty of energy. Like, yes, we're way too dependent on
plenty
fossil fuels.
If we want to keep doing that.
Yeah, money's
it's fake.
Yeah. So, especially fiat. I have Bitcoin. Trust me. I know money's fake. I know money's fake. So, the point is that if you point out that we're in this economy that's not built on actually providing value, but it's basically built on speculative money making. So if you start a company, let's say we start a company, we start a eco-friendly weed company that's going to change the world. And we know someone, he goes, I can get you some investors. I can get you $50 million to invest to grow your company. I'm like, oh shit, think we could do $50 million. We can get this out to 1 billion people. So this investor's like, hey, guess what? I can get you another $200 million from these people, and they're going to invest in your company, and you can get this out to everyone. Like, fuck yeah. Like, now we can pay ourselves a real salary. Remember, we believe in this shit. We're doing it, and we're getting paid. Eventually what happens is you've taken on so much capital to invest in your thing. These are like these $1 billion companies, these $10 billion companies. I really wonder what's happening with Uber now after everyone deleted Uber, because they were valued at like billions of dollars, maybe the biggest IPO ever. So basically these people take on all this debt and wealth, and it's not really. It's not really, but you have to pay it back. So the value of the initial public offering, the IPO, is you got to pay all these people back through the IPO so they can cash out if they want there, or get their dividends and just keep making money forever if the company's successful. But it's no longer tied to what we wanted to do, which is helping the world through an eco-friendly weed business. It's now something that is a cash. It has no value in the world, and that's how most of these things work.
And that's the goal.
Right, and that's the goal. Well, he basically breaks it down and says if you go back to the old days, like with bazaars and like, you know, free marketplaces, before currency, before the king was like, hey, you need to have this coin of the realm, and this is the only coin you can use, and if you're caught using your coin, we're gonna fucking kill you. So I don't know if they did exactly like that, but I assume so. You know, before fiat currency, which that is, people were just like, yo, you're a barber? Oh, I butcher cows. Oh, I'm a dairy person. Oh, I make carpets. Do you want to figure out a system where we can trade our goods and services? And oh, maybe we have a local thing that says I owe you this much. So like that got co-opted. It basically is moved into the digital domain, which disattaches it from any system. Like he brings up this, like a certain economist who was like, listen, you can do fiat currency if you attach it to like a public restoration project or something that really provides value for people, because then it's a self-sustainable thing. But when you detach it from that, put it on the digital realm, the same models, you get the crash of 2008 for the housing thing, which I don't really understand. I didn't have any real debt. I didn't have any real thing that I was any foot in the door where it fucking fucked me up. I wasn't trying to buy a house. Now I'm seeing how it fucked me up though, because when you go and try to buy a house now and you're self-employed, they don't, like I told you, they are assuming that you will not make any money the next year. They're saying you're a moron, basically. You're dumb fucking lucky that you've been able to survive for however many years you've been doing it, because that's just about to come crashing out. When the banks are saying that, and this is what other people I've been talking to who are out in the world, who are waiters, and I heard this, I forget who I heard this, but you basically, you hear chirpings like, when they start pulling money out and they start getting cagey, it's not just a reaction. They know they're going to make more money from Donald Trump, all these lendings. So, yeah, man. I just think that eventually we're going to be forced to come up with systems. Like, let me put it like this. I was forced to get a lot more smart and compassionate and open-minded out of necessity, because if I hadn't done that, my life would have been a lot worse.
That's basically what happened to me.
Right. That's what happens to a lot of people, right? I mean, you get to the point.
It's selfish in that way, almost. You're like, okay, obviously, I've tried other things. I've tried other ways. This is the only thing that's going to work for a guy like me.
That's how I also, I was telling the guy who disagreed with me, I was like, listen, man, the reason I'm starting to pull back on the Trump stuff, and I'm still tuned in, I still know what's going on, but I'm not obsessively doing it, is like, I gotta control my own shit. I got my own issues. Like, that's first and foremost. That's shit I actually have to deal with every day. I can choose to deal with what's going on. And like, you know, I'm not saying that anyone should not be engaged with political activism or anything like that. It's just that you need to make sure that you're okay, in not a selfish way. It's the same oxygen mask analogy. You could put on your oxygen mask first so you can then be okay to put it on other people. You still have to put it on the other people, which a lot of people have forgotten. But I just think we're going to be forced to evolve more quickly, because people are seeing kind of like this could get really... It already has. It's bad. It's bad.
It's worse than I would have expected. And like to your point about like our financial institutions, Trump just signed an executive order basically encouraging banks to give bad advice now. Because when you say you can legally, aren't you encouraging it at that point?
Yeah, deregulating. I mean, the funny thing I was laughing at is anyone could say Trump just signed an executive order, and you could make anything up, and people are like, I believe it.
Yeah, no, I think he did that. He actually did that.
Trump just signed an executive order that midgets should be killed.
And he had to do it, you know.
He had to do it. He had to do it. And people are like, no, that's not okay.
This fucking clown. He can't keep us safe legally. He can't even figure out. He's such a dumbass. We have the biggest military in the world, and he can't figure out how to keep us safe legally.
Well, he's not in charge, right? It's Steve Bannon.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I know
apparently
that's
drives him crazy too. So we have to keep reminding people.
I mean, I just say it because it's scary. Because like, I hope people can like rattle his Donald Trump's cage enough that like he gets that he is being manipulated. But the other thing is that a lot of people are conveniently forgetting. Like, you know, I didn't live here, but like he took out a full page ad in the New York Times, I believe, or forget what paper it was. basically calling for the death penalty for these kids who are accused
Central Park
of
Five.
the Central Park Five. They were innocent. They
Yeah.
were exonerated.
I know.
So like through DNA evidence, like
Yeah.
he was basically like, "Yo, kill these," and they were kids, man. They were like
Yeah.
kids.
I know.
So like,
He still stands by it.
and his dad apparently, like, you know, there's a fine line between the I mean, there's not. That's the truth. But a lot of people like to think there's a fine line between the casual racist who's just discriminatory and has certain views, and people who are like, "Fuck you, so and so." Like, so there's not. And
No,
I think
because
that
Trump's in there. I mean, it doesn't make a difference. This guy is a racist. He's been proven to be a racist for decades. And I mean, I grew up in New York. I know about this guy.
You know what they're doing, though. And this is what scares me. And Alexis freaks out every time I mention it. But I really do think this is what they're doing. And this is not, I don't think so much a conspiracy. He's poking the bear right now.
Yeah.
The Muslim ban
I know.
is poking the bear. He don't give a fuck who's in this country. He knows shit's going to happen. He says it every day. He says it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm warning you. It's going to happen. He's just saying this. So when it does happen, either because they allowed it to happen or weren't as secure as they could have been and were trying to prove a point, or someone just is like, yo, fuck Donald Trump, I'm trying to blow some shit up, he's going to be like, yeah, guess what? Now I was right. So now you people who didn't believe me, some of them are going to believe him, and he's just going to start going so crazy with the civil rights stuff.
I think he's going to start a war. I think
think
it'll
a
be
war?
yeah, because I think it'll be easier for him to be a president. I think he'll learn from what George W. Bush.
I think so.
It's easier to be a wartime president and do the types of things he wants to do. It's also the endless jobs program of all time to send our young men and women overseas to fight an endless war against a religion, basically.
I don't know. I mean, I agree that is a very plausible outcome. Like, it makes a lot of sense. But who's he going to war with? Who are you going to war with right now where it doesn't escalate to the point where it's not like...
Iran.
Yeah, Iran's going to be like, yo, guess what? We got nukes. Guess what? Morons, we have nukes. Like, Donald Trump's been saying, like, we're definitely developing plutonium. Like, we got nukes. You want us to blow up Israel? Yeah. And then we'd be like, no, because then that's going to... So I think the weird thing is...
Like, you think he'll keep his head out of all that stuff?
He's
and really...
trying to cozy up to Putin, by all accounts. He's trying to establish himself as, like, part of the axis of evil. Like, what, famously was referred to as the axis of evil was just some poor fucking people in shitty countries getting bombed all the time. We're the axis of evil. Now we won't let him in because we bombed him. It's so fucked up. Yeah. But, no, I mean, like, and again, we're not political pundits. We have no fucking idea. But I do, the tea leaves, to me, would seem to point that, like, he's looking for opportunities to, A, be proven right.
Yeah.
B, like you said, I never thought of, like, he's trying to, it is easier to be a wartime president. It's way easier. You pretty much have a known enemy. The problem is, I don't think you have a country to go to war with. You have this new guerrilla terrorist warfare, which it's like Vietnam. It's like, you don't win that war. Like, we won the war, we're pulling out, great. Okay, no, you didn't win the fucking war. You lost.
Is there winning any war ever again? It's not that type of world anymore. Like, what are you doing?
Well, for Russia, it still kind of is.
Yeah.
They're taking over Ukraine.
Yeah.
They're just like,
the old-fashioned way.
They're just like, you know what? We're going to do this now.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't even know where I fall. I don't... let me tell you this. Let me tell you this. I was surprised to find this. I really do believe in the United States of America. The way that states, and the good and the bad that comes with this, but the way that there are checks and balances, even if we don't think they're going to withstand Trump and what's going on, that shit's amazing. Because any other country, I mean, we'll see what happens in Germany and France and these other democracies, but the way the democracies are set up, to the legislative, the executive, and the judicial, like, that shit is working right now. Like, the ACL, like, they stopped the Muslim ban, even if it comes back on, and even if they overreach again, that shit is working.
There's ways to stop.
That gives me a lot of hope for people organizing, getting smart about this, because I saw a tweet, and this was the best tweet I saw on the whole Donald Trump administration thing, it's like, imagine if we had fascists, just fascists, instead of people who are fascists and also dumbasses. Like, like, they're dumb. Like, they're not smart. Like, they're telegraphing their shit from miles out, and, like, they're sending out misspelled things, and it's not like some clever con they're playing. They're like morons. They're like, they're making shit up. They're going to get caught in their lies. So...
Oh, they're fucked.
So they're not going to handle it. But, if you get, like, a real efficient thing... Listen, I'll tell you what... This is what I've been thinking about, and I want to figure out how we can do this for good and not bad. One of my relatives posted... He's a theoretical physicist, and he posted this guy on the Late Show. The guy with Corbin. I don't really watch it, but
It's on CVS, I think.
Yeah, and he had this mentalist guy. I think he was Israeli. And I like mentalists. I think people who like can put the illusion of being psychic or something, but are admitting that it is some type of like psychological or unconscious trick. I think that's cool. I think it can be used very manipulatively when you get into things like NLP and stuff like that. But this guy, he did this trick, and he got everyone in the fucking audience to unconsciously draw the same symbol, which was a star inside of a circle. Everyone in the fucking audience.
Really?
And it was insane. And you can watch it. What I really liked about him is he showed everyone how he did it. He said, all these symbols that you thought I was drawing, just like making up, if you look at them, he drew like a Superman S, a cross, a mountain, a weird mountain, he kept calling it, and a bunny. He showed at the end that if you map them out, they weren't actually those things. It was something that spelled out star. The S was the S, the T was the cross, the A was the mountain, the R was the bunny flipped down, and it was an R. And he's like, this is why you wrote star. And I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
I was like, dude, if this guy is doing this to a TV audience, yo, we're so fucked.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
like, we got to use that for good. We got to figure out how to do that.
I think the phrase of 2017 so far is there are layers to this thing, man.
Yeah.
There's layers to this
exactly.
thing. What the fuck?
I don't know, man.
Beautiful.
I don't know. It's just, we have to figure out how to get better at recognizing, A, what we're individually thinking, and then collectively apply that, because what else creates change? I mean, how else?
It starts at home, like you're just saying, you know?
I don't see anyone out there consistently doing it, so.
That was Cass giving us the thumbs up.
Sweet. I like that this is a curtain.
Yeah.
It's like you're coming into a stage.
Yeah. It's actually because we have really annoying forced air heat. So, and it goes away. Like this room will get hot as a sauna. And then the second the heat turns off, it gets really cold. So that curtain helps keep the heat in here a little bit and separate make it feel like a bigger apartment than it is.
It's also cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty chill. Curtain talk. With no lamps.
I'm just saying we need to figure out how to unconsciously create symbols that will make the world a better place instead of manipulating people, because that's where I think we are. And I don't know. I was just so surprised how easy it was. I kind of knew he was doing something like that, but so did everyone else. Like, he was blowing. I think what's his name was there, Harry Connick Jr. And Harry Connick Jr. was like running out of the room. He's like, couldn't believe it. But he predicted his like pin number. You know, there's these tricks that we can use, psychological and unconscious, like tips we can use to key in on this. But that's not really why it's interesting to me. It's interesting because if you apply that to a mass scale, like Bernays, Freud's cousin, which is basically like the modern father of propaganda, which the Nazis used his stuff, which then turned into advertising. Symbols are being used against us without us knowing that symbols can even be used for that.
Yeah.
That's, to me, like, that's not...
Fuck, I know. What
so
about Pepe
that's,
the Frog,
that's
man?
Well, Duncan was telling me, he said he was talking to Jason Louv. I got to have him on. And he, you should have him on too. I heard him on Zach Leary's podcast, and he was talking about Pepe the Frog and Kek and these chaos gods that the alt-right is summoning. And Duncan, like, Duncan up and he goes, so sorry. I'm like, for what? And he's like, the Patriots. Because just to be clear, I spazzed the fuck out on Twitter.
Yeah,
I was
saw
laying
it. It was
into
awesome.
the Patriots. Oh yeah, no, fuck them. But
I like that you were associating them with that alt-right asshole who got
Richard
punched.
Spencer.
Yeah,
I just retweeted him.
Yeah, this guy's rooting for this team because they have the most white people.
Hey man. Richard fucking Spencer. Yeah. I mean, I retweeted Richard Spencer, which is probably unethical. It's probably unethical.
I didn't even think about it like that. That's pretty funny.
I did. I was like, yo, I just dead ass retweeted Richard Spencer. Not a good thing. But it was making my point, you know? Yeah. Well, no. So this Kek thing. So Duncan was saying that Jason Louv said that he really thinks that they summoned this chaos god and everything is going to be like this. And I'm like, yo, man, we got to summon some other gods then. We need to make this like... I also believe that. I mean, just in the sense that...
I do too.
I think the connection between psyche and matter inner and outer, is just becoming more clear for people to see that when you think something and you it is now, you can manifest it much more closer than it's been in the past. Aided by technology in some parts, but I just think aided like what is going on collectively and energetically. And I think as that happens, people start to just freak out. Because, like, why wouldn't you? That's not what we were told. We weren't told, like, hey, if you really think about something, really put your whole heart and soul into it, that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
People do not believe that. And so you kind of freak out, and then it's just like, what do? You have choices. And then what happens to a lot of people, myself included, is you oscillate between, the cultural track of what is going on and the oscillations of your life, which you shouldn't fight, by the way. I don't think it's a good way to fight that. I think that's why a lot of people have, fucked up relationships and, psychological complexes and issues, is they're fighting, a natural way of a life is set up, and we're in the context of that life. Don't totally rail against it as some like separatist, as someone who's mocking it, because then you're not getting the insights that are applicable. And then you have to also ride the wave of like intuition. Right. Kind of align and like get those things to go. So I think people, that's what's important to do. And I think I forgot my train of thought.
Well, I mean, I think you're speaking about balance, really. And, it feels like things, like, especially when I look at Twitter, a lot better. You've been on there a lot longer than I have. But, like, I'm like, the only thing that's on there is Trump, and it's being overtaken by this, and there's a balance that needs to be achieved between like this emotional outburst that we're all having and like having and honing that energy and actually doing something about it. So,
I think it'll naturally come, like with the cancer analogy, like you freak out. My mom was diagnosed with uterine cancer like 2 years ago. Oh, wow. And she found out in like February and had surgery, I think in late March, and was like cancer free in June. I mean, she was fucked up. I mean, it was major surgery. She was fucked up for like a year, but didn't have cancer anymore. That, I know what the process of feeling, and like you don't know what's going to happen, and like people who have to deal with like much worse things than themselves and other people, like it's more focused, and it's but if you've treated it successfully in any capacity, you needed to know about the thing, and that's what's going to happen. So I think it is important to stay engaged and be aware of what's happening, but like you're saying, modulate and figure out how to allow it to remind you that things need to be fixed, but not to get focused and fixated. Because like I was thinking about this too, man. Like the first 2 weeks, I was like, I don't work at an office, but I bet productivity across the board in every fucking job is going way down.
I thought about that too. Is that even measurable?
Yeah, well, I read a report today on the train over that said 1 in 3 people, I think it was, said their coworkers were talking more about politics and Trump than working. Yeah. So 33% said that that's what was going on, which to me means probably higher. I mean, how could you not be?
My mom works in a very corporate environment, and she calls me from there all the time. And over the past year, her voice has become like this. Yeah, she's the only Hillary supporter there.
Oh man.
And but all they talk about is this stuff. It's pretty it's pretty crazy, Whereas before that, I just feel like we all kind of took for granted and just we're in good hands.
Oh, we thought we were, but we weren't. The truth is this.
No, exactly.
Here's the truth.
That's an illusion too.
Yeah. The truth is even if everything was great, and this is why I'm not advocating for Hillary to lose, but if Hillary would have won, shit would have still been super fucked up. And I don't mean that. And I mean this just to be clear. If Bernie would have won, shit would have still been, let's say the good people, quote unquote, won. This shit would still be super fucked up, because guess what? There's still 60-something million people out there who feel that they are about to be extinguished in some way, not just racially or white nationalists. Their jobs are going. This are facts. This isn't like, this is the facts of life. Yeah. Those people also have a proclivity for guns. So I'd much rather us be like the people who are like, yo, we got to figure out how to make this better without guns, than people be like, we're pissed off and we got guns.
I watched this film last night called Trumped on it's on Showtime on demand or whatever. Yeah, it's just basically a regurgitation of that show, The Circus, which was
I didn't see it.
These political guys following around. They got a lot of good footage from the campaign.
My friend, I think his wife was on that show.
Yeah, I mean it was cool. I watched the show because it was like real time, well shot politics and like dudes I kind of trust. But at the end of it, they're showing Like no one thought Trump was going to win, and it was really palpable. And he looked terrified when he came out to give I was watching this last night before I went to bed. He looked terrified when he came out to give his acceptance speech. And I started thinking about what would it have been like if Hillary became president. And I think it would have been really, 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 really fucking bad.
I just think that...
like it would have been better for the country overall. But this moment would have, like, I would, like, exactly what you're saying. I would rather us be the underdog right now and have to be the resistance than whatever that resistance was going to be.
Me too.
That version of an American resistance, it's not peace and love women's march.
It's not. And
it's open carry in the streets, like scary shit.
I know. And I mean, I do think that's... I just keep thinking back because I was editing it. I had to find a clip for this week's episode. And, like, there's a point in the episode where he's like, and I'm laughing because he could be right. He's like, no, this is bad. And he literally goes, no good will come of this. Now, I say this confidently. Whenever you say no good or all good, you're probably going to be wrong. Not been my experience.
Yeah.
But he could mean, like, no good in the sense, like, we're about to have concentration camps in 20 years. It would be hard to argue that the good of that, we're probably not going to be alive to see the good of that. So for us, it doesn't really. But, I mean, I don't know, man. I just think that we have buffers and bulwarks against some of the horrible shit's about to go down. Mm-hmm. People are about to fuck a lot of people over. But I do think some of the people who are in the process of fucking people over, some of those people will be like, yo, guess what? I don't want to fuck people over anymore. And those people are going to be immensely wealthy. Yeah. They're going to be in positions that maybe can influence. Like,
it's going to happen sooner than later, too, because it's so crazy. It's such chaos that, like, eventually someone on their side is going to be like, okay, yeah, enough's enough with this. We're not going to be in service to this guy's ego as a country anymore. Them, right? Yeah, probably.
What do we, I mean, like... I don't know. I don't know where to think. I don't want to sound like an idiot in 10 years. Not that that's what's driving me to not say things, but like, I don't like look back in 10 years and be like, oh man, like from my cell with like my mind implant from Black Mirror where they're forcing me to relive like past memories to realize how stupid I was for fighting against Imperial Trump. So but I mean, I just have to believe that in 4 or 8 years, here's another analogy, right? I think this country and our political game, especially the presidential race, is just like football. And I think what happens, I'm a Dolphins fan, so I've seen a lot of head coaches get overturned in the years, right? A lot since Don Shula. Okay, so this is what happens. When you get a coach and a new coach, he's the opposite of the coach before. The exact, if you had and you weren't winning, and some people thought you weren't winning. So if you have, a soft-spoken, tactical, smart thinker type of guy, not going to rah-rah yell at you, the next guy you get is some big fucking dude who's going to yell at you, be your buddy, talk about drinking beers. When that doesn't work, you're going to go back to another guy. So like, it's just this oscillator. That's what we're doing, That's what this country does. That's why people don't win. Parties don't win. The two-party system, they don't win 3 times in a row. That's why it doesn't happen, because like people are like, nah, I don't know this shit. It's not fixed yet. Yeah. I think the framework, what we're talking about of capitalism and all of this stuff, I don't see how that's sustainable.
No, absolutely
I don't see how people can begin to continue to think that it's sustainable. And I think that is going to promote change. Like, I feel like it's like, we will evolve or not into something that can adapt to like being a more sustainable presence on the planet, or we will just eradicate ourselves.
Well, it's beautiful because it's happening in the way of machines making jobs a thing of the past, and they're going to become completely obsolete. Probably not all jobs, but
no, I know.
But eventually, totally.
In like 10 years, that they said there was that graph. I'm sure everyone saw it after Trump won, which is like. All of the states where the primary job in the state was truck driver. Yeah. And then it showed you in 10 years that like 90% of truck driving jobs would be automated.
Yeah. So
they're not all going to become doctors.
Exactly.
Not because they're stupid, but because they've been driving a truck for 50 years.
Are we going to treat them like the coal miners, and are we going to feed them a bunch of bullshit for decades, saying we're going to bring these jobs back? Fuck those computers driving these things. We're going to get you back in those trucks and get you back in those good jobs. Are we going to treat them like that and use them as political pawns? And the joke's on them. The answer is yes.
Yep.
Totally.
That's exactly what we're going to do.
It's so sad. It's so sad. Instead of us saying, all right, here's our chance to be socialists.
Negative income tax.
Yeah, exactly.
Negative income tax. We don't even have to be socialists. We just have to be people like, hey, you got a few $1 billion, you gotta kick back. Like, I know you think that's all your money, but it's not, because you took it from these people, and you got to redistribute it in a way that actually makes sense. And even if we disagree on how to do that, even if you think I don't want abortion and I want abortion, well, that's fine. We don't all have to fucking agree, even if I think that it's outrageous that you're a pro-life person and you seem to not care about people who are alive. Go live in a state where
there's no abortion.
Yeah, or a state or a country or you can have an enclave of people who don't believe in that. As long as you're treating people with civility, I mean, I don't see why women, if given the choice, would want to choose against that. But I understand the religious and philosophical reasons that one would be against abortion.
Absolutely.
And like ethically.
And we need to be more inclusive like that. Otherwise, this isn't going to work, because they got their shit together.
You can have difference of opinions. No one is ever going to agree about everything. That's why all the utopian movies or any story or myth we see, there's always a fall from utopia, because this is like this stasis. It's boring. We might as well just tell a story like there is this place.
Yeah.
That's the story. Sucks. Not cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's going to be okay, because like I said, I do think this is promoting change. The Women's March that happened right after he was inaugurated was really awesome. Didn't fix anything really necessarily, but it showed people that, like, we're not just going to roll over like some fucking third world nation or some country that hasn't been doing this. Like, we know what our rights are. Once you give people rights, to take them away, what you basically need to do is create a terror attack. It's the only way you can take them away.
Oh, yeah. So. Totally. And then we'll give them away in the name of Americanism.
Although, you said you didn't listen to it, but I listened to the whole
Alex Jones
and Joe Rogan thing.
Well, I didn't like that it seemed like Joe Rogan was giving a platform to this extremely outrageous stuff, what I was hearing, calling people pedophiles and all this stuff. We know
Vic Berger, right? We know that something that directly happened because Alex Jones propagated a story, which maybe there's some funny coincidence or something. And truthfully, I didn't investigate it. Hard for me to believe that this is a pedophile ring, even though there probably are pedophile rings in the world. No one's dismissing that fact. But yeah, Joe Rogan for about 3 hours, he smoked weed with him, which was really cool.
Alex Jones smoked weed?
On camera.
I was wondering that.
It was It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Because listen, here's the thing about Alex Jones, and Vic told me something about him that I didn't know. He's apparently a huge synth head. Like, he has a lot of synthesizers, like old customers, like super into them.
Wow.
Which is cool. Like, that's cool. Yeah, I relate to Alex Jones on that. Well, that's cool as shit. I wish. But yeah, Joe is basically giving him a platform for a lot of really crazy ideas. However, he was pointing out some factual things that undermine the narrative of what people would like to believe about this country. Yeah. It's kind of like the Barack Obama, the things that people like. I think Barack Obama's a mensch, as good as a mensch can be as a president, but he also droned the fuck. I mean, droned the fuck out of people. I mean, you could argue that it was whatever you want to say. So it's a moral quagmire there, but like, he pointed out, he said a couple things. Oh, and then I watched the Donald Trump, and I went down the fucking rabbit hole. After I listened to Joe Rogan and Alex Jones, I listened to Alex Jones have Donald Trump on his podcast in October.
Wow. Recently as October, there was a...
Yeah, can I tell you what really fucked with my head? There's at least one thing that I agreed with Donald Trump on. I was like, I didn't think about it like that. That's a smart thing. Maybe this guy's... And I came away thinking, this guy's not dumb.
What was it?
He was saying, listen, while we were fucking bombing Afghanistan and going in, we didn't take any of the oil. We didn't do anything, and I don't agree that we should have taken oil. It's fucked up. But he's like, we went in, fought this whole quagmire of a war. It was a whole fucked up thing. Guess what China was doing? They're mining the other side of the fucking mountains for rare earth materials to dominate $1 trillion market on rare earth materials, which we use for computers and cell phones. So who's a fucking idiot there? We're fighting people for an impossible victory in a place we don't understand. We're only doing stupid shit. And China's getting rich. And I was like, damn, man, Donald Trump. I'm agreeing with Donald Trump. So I really had like a dark night of the soul. That said...
You're the common man.
Well,
You're a man of the people.
I understood that it is so easy to convince people of pretty much anything when we know so little about how things actually work. And that actually means how politics, global politics, and just like regular shit.
Like what are computers made of? And
that I don't think I'm ever going to know, but that is a good point. I mean, like, we don't know the basic understanding of like how our brains work. We don't understand how things get manifested. We don't understand consciousness. We don't understand thinking. You know, when you delve into those things, you get a little bit of understanding. You know, the world just kind of breaks up in the way you typically understand it. So,
and Trump just seems like just a thing that's happening, and
he's an avatar. I think. I really do. I think he's a symbol of. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people are buying into this narcissism, cultural attitude. And I think it's a fucking red herring because it's not narcissism. It's a system that is meant to make you feel and think that you're somehow lacking. And there's personal responsibility here, of course, but you're somehow lacking, yet can never get enough. It's like trapping you in the hungry ghost realm where you can never get enough. And it's like that just keeps you in this state where like the shit you're even fighting against and fighting for, like not even necessarily what you need to be. Like I said, this is a balancing of the householders, the in the West world, and the inner exploration. But it has to be both of them. And the inner stuff, I don't think enough people investigate that through meditation, through psychedelics, through discussions.
What would encourage that?
Podcasts. I think podcasts. I do think that's conversations. That's all. When I say podcasts, that's all I mean. Conversations. Because we have all, before we ever knew what a podcast was, we would have these conversations with people, smoking a joint or drinking beers, whatever it is people are into, having these conversations. I remember my friend from like way back in elementary school, we would talk about time travel when we were like 8, and like, well, if you did this back then, it would affect all these things. And like, that's how you learn about shit. Yeah. That's how you do it.
I heard about meditation on Howard Stern.
Really?
He rarely mentions it.
Do you do TM?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. So I have a lot of TM. The next one, I want to ask you a lot of TM questions.
Yeah, I'm totally down.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
How do you want to do? Should we just keep going and clip it, or start another one?
No, we'll stop it. We'll get Cass out here.
Cool.
And we'll have another go at it.
I love it. How long was this?
I think it was pretty good.
Perfect.
This was a damn pleasure, man.
I know, it's really fun.
Yeah.
Well,
it's cool.
Post-podcast apology for talking so much. Like I said, I kind of do it next week too with a wonderful guest, but I'm going to try to do it less. It's something I'm going to work on. How cool is Sean? How cool is their podcast? Very cool. Go check it out. Very Ape Podcast on MindPodNetwork.com. Go check out veryape.tv for Sean's documentaries. Truly incredible. If you're looking for a place to start, I would go Oxyana. It's a tough watch. It's tough. It's about the opioid epidemic. It's about the opioid epidemic in Oxyana, Texas, West Virginia, Texas. Jeez, I'm all over the place. I probably should put a pin in the talking at this point. Thank you to everyone who rates and reviews and describes. Holy shit. Worst outro of all time, episode 70. Nailed it. Seriously, though, thank you to everyone who reviews, rates, comments, gets in touch with me. I've been getting some really great emails from you. I love getting them. I love hearing about the synchronicities that are happening in your life, both related and unrelated to this podcast. Shoot me an email, noah@syncpodcast.com. I'll write back. Ask anyone. I don't know how you would know people who wrote into me, but if someone has, ask them. Join the Facebook group. Consider a donation like my amazing supporter, Patrick, the coolest guy in the universe, who he knows why. Feel free. I am not above soliciting for donations. There's no Amazon portal for this podcast. I'm not telling you to go buy stuff through an Amazon portal. The only way this podcast gets any type of revenue is by direct donations from people who care. So that's my little PBS pitch to you. I will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.